Welcome back to the Midnight Mystery Archive. And I am very fortunate today to be joined by Crystal Dunahee, who is the mother of Michael Dunahee, who is the subject of a two-part series of the podcast. And Crystal has been a very outspoken advocate on behalf of Michael, of course, but other missing children in Canada as well. And having her voice be a part of the podcast is something that I'm both grateful for and appreciative of. Crystal, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi. As you stated, my name is Crystal Dunahee. I'm Michael's mother. Yeah. Retired. I don't work anymore. So
Good enough. Good enough. So one of the things that I've shared with you that I like to do is really like to get a bit of insight into the person that these stories are about. And Michael was a 4-year-old boy back in 1991. Can you share some of your memories of Michael?
Well, we just had his baby sister, so he's really excited about that and learning how to ride his bike without his training wheels, getting ready for kindergarten in September.
Was he pretty excited about starting school? Because I remember at that age, I was somebody who was like, I don't know about this. Was he looking forward to that?
I think so. Yeah.
And then the bike riding, right? I remember doing that with my kids as well. How was he doing with that? Was that something he was picking up, or was it taking some time?
It was taking some time because he had a wipeout and turn on a dime and it doesn't work so well. So
I had
Bit
a
of a
wipeout
startle.
in that process too. I can relate to that.
yeah, but he was getting the hang of it.
And I know he was very excited about his little sister. I read
Yes.
that repeatedly in some of my research. And one of the things that I was, interested in is, how did he take to being a big brother? Some kids like it, some kids don't. It sounds like he was excited about it.
He was excited about it. When she was born, because we didn't do the sneak peek to see what we were having. So it was either a boy or it was either a girl. So it's a boy, girl? No. Yeah.
So at 4 years old, what were some of the things he liked doing?
Going out and playing with his friends in the complex where we lived. There was a park in the middle. So he'd play with his friends there and climb the jungle gym, do things that boys like doing.
Yeah. But was he one of the types of boys who was always getting into trouble? I may or may not have been that way at that age.
No, I don't know. He was a bit of a follower. So he'd go along with wherever they were going and go play in the trees and get covered in rashes. And it's like, don't play in those trees. There's lots of spiders in there.
Amongst other things.
Yeah.
So when people hear about Michael's story for the first time, what is something that, case coverage over the years hasn't quite captured about?
Just a trusting, innocent little boy that blonde hair, blue eyes, that no matter how many times you tell him not to talk to strangers, they're bound to do it. It happens.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that I remember, my own children trying to kind of get that thought into their head, hope that they understand why we're telling them this. And it's not just we're not being a wet blanket. It's actually for your own protection. But, even my kids, we'd still be at the store or something and they're talking to somebody in line behind her back and stuff like that. It's the innocence of kids, especially at that age. They just don't have a concept of anything bad happening. So at the time Michael disappeared, Caitlin's a baby, right?
Yes. She was 6 months old.
So what has her experience been like growing up with the story of Michael and that day in March of 91?
Very protective, always living in the shadow of Michael's disappearance, her seeing herself as the only child. So it was tough on her.
Yeah, I can imagine. So take me back to that afternoon. What do you remember about that day? Because the descriptions in a lot of the reports are just a normal afternoon. Didn't seem out of the ordinary.
No, it wasn't. I play ladies flag touch football. Michael was over playing at his friend's house, brought him home, had lunch, went and picked up a friend along the way, my friend, one of our players, got to the field. On the drive to the field, he'd asked if he could play at the park. I said, well, we'll see when we get there. And there was a couple of kids playing in the park. So we, for the first time, let him go off to the park by himself.
Yeah. So one of the things that has been interesting as I've read it is the investigation itself, pretty much right from the start, was massive by most standards today.
Yeah.
Which I've talked to other family members, and I think to myself, my gosh, if they could have gotten a fraction of that, how different could the story have been? And what was it like from your perspective, not just as the parent, but just being the family and seeing that support over those first weeks and months? Because of course, it wasn't just law enforcement, right? There was a real community effort to help you and help him.
There was. We were at the community center in the area, and I had gone outside for fresh air, and I was like, The amount of vehicles and people that I had seen out there was just overwhelming. The hydro trucks of people that work on the roadside coming and getting posters because the internet wasn't a thing then. So it's all photocopies out over the radio and mail outs. Like, I don't know how many thousands of mail outs that we did.
Yeah. Now, did you get a lot of support? Obviously, from an investigative standpoint, you as a family received a lot of support. They were working extremely hard in those days. But did you get any additional support? Maybe any, like therapy, any support like that from the community to just kind of help you process it? Because I can't fathom what that experience is like.
There's a resource called Victims of Violence, so we went through that and got counseling. It helps to a degree, but it
Right.
doesn't heal
Of
the
course not.
the
So,
issue that is still out there.
yeah. So over now 35 years, there have been, leads that I'm sure have come in, raised hopes. Sometimes those hopes get dashed. It seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of long-term cases, of course. And without getting into any details that you're not comfortable with sharing, what was that cycle like? I've had other families describe it as a yo-yo. Did you feel that way as well?
More of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
In the onset, we were kept informed of everything that was going on with tips that they were following up on, the outcome of those tips, and they could just see what it was doing to us emotionally. So they just held back and said, well, we'll keep you posted, but we won't go into as much depth because it was just causing a lot of pain.
Yeah. Did they kind of change their tact a little bit and just say, maybe more plays the role of a filter, like this they need to know about, this probably not. Is that kind of how they ended up approaching it?
Yeah, like, did you know so and so, or were you ever in this place? Did you ever do this? And then, of course, they investigate the family, which is one of the things that we had to go through
Yeah.
because there was a lot of hearsay.
Of course. Unfortunately, that's one of the hard parts about these cases, not just the case themselves. It's the fact that families have to go through the questioning because they've got to do their due diligence, of course.
Yep.
Do you remember on that day specifically? I've read different reports saying dozens of people were in the area, 50 people were in the area. Would you say that was a pretty accurate assessment?
Yeah, because at that time there was already a football game in progress.
Okay.
And we were coming in for the 1:00 game. So there was a rotating people coming in, people going out, spectators at the field. It was just
Yeah.
a lot of people around. And it was on a busy street, so it could be people that were walking by.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I thought was interesting too is the fact that there were so many people and nobody saw anything.
Yeah.
It's just hard to fathom. But I just covered a case here in the States, and it's very sadly very common where it's either you get a split second something happens and nobody sees it, or you're in a crowded place and somebody doesn't notice something out of the ordinary. And then you wind up 10, 20, 15, years later, and it's just so shocking.
Mhm.
Now, you've said publicly that you believe that if Canada's Amber Alert system, very similar to ours here in the States that existed in 1991, that Michael would have been found.
No, I believe I said that even with the Amber Alert, the way it's written now, it wouldn't have helped us because we had nothing to
Wouldn't
go on.
have. Okay.
No, it wouldn't have helped.
Gotcha. Okay. I think I mistyped that. So I apologize for
No
that.
worries. Yeah, because there's no description of a person, there's no description of a vehicle, there's nothing. So you can't put an Amber Alert out without following all the
Those
criteria.
key details, right. I don't know how it is up by you, but I know here where I'm at in the Carolinas, when those alerts go out, obviously your phones ding,
Mhm.
description of the child, where they were last seen, who they were last seen with, the vehicle, all that stuff. And then driving down the highway, there are even billboards periodically that flash it as well.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
believe
structured that way there?
it's exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, over the course of the last 35 years, you became part of Child Find BC. Tell me a little bit about that work, what you were involved with, and what has that work meant to you over the course of the years?
Well, it's a matter of trying to streamline things because every time you registered a missing child with an agency, you had to do it all over again. Like, every state has their own, every province has their own. But with Child Find, it was you do it once and it goes across the country. But
Yeah.
the Child Find that was in BC was kinda dormant because there wasn't anything going on. So we kinda took over that dormancy and brought it back to the limelight and made it more out there.
And in that time, did you have any successes with helping to recover children during that time? Any that stick out to you?
No, because we're more of an advocacy with education. We don't have the manpower to help with investigation, so we help get it out there, disseminate posters if they're needed, but now as everything's online, so they go through those agencies. But the big one that we were directed to is the National Center.
Okay, so similar here to the States, we have the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now, do you guys, I read about the Keep the Hope Alive run. Is that something you guys are still doing every year?
Yep.
Yeah, good. What does it mean to your family, that event?
Well, it brings the community together, and I believe it helps families have that opportunity to talk to their children about their surroundings and personal safety. That opens, I hope, opens that conversation portal with them.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think that's one of the biggest things, right? We kind of alluded to it earlier. We try to instill some of those thoughts in our kids' brains, and we hope they take them, but sometimes
Mhm.
they don't. But that extra encouragement to have those conversations, I'm a big learner from repetition. The more you hear it, it'll finally take with me. And I
Yeah.
think that's exactly how it works with a lot of children as well.
Yeah, basically listening to your own body too. If you get butterflies in your stomach, then something's not right.
I think that's a really good lesson for a lot of young kids. If something just doesn't feel right, trust those instincts because you're probably right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in 2021, there was an age enhanced sketch shown of Michael, what he might look like at 34 years old. What was it like to see that image the first time?
It's hard to picture it. It's still you're seeing your child grow up through age enhancement instead of through reality. It's one of those things you never know if it's quite right because I've seen some of his friends from when they were 4, and I've seen them, and it's like I totally recognize them. So it's like, yeah, I think I believe I would recognize my own son, but and sometimes in those pictures, it's like I don't know, it just doesn't quite seem right. But we don't have anything else to go on, so
Right.
we have to trust what they've put together for us.
Did that release of that image, did that bring in any new tips or any new leads in his case?
Every time we do an event or new age enhancements are done, they're just swamped. They have a dedicated line for tips on Michael's case so that doesn't overwhelm their system. And that came about because their system did get overwhelmed and crashed.
Oh, right, yeah. Do you still interact with the local authorities who are still investigating Michael's case? Do you hear from them very often? Anything that they've come about recently that, thought, "Oh, wow, this could be something."
I check in with them occasionally just to see what's going on, and they just all they can tell me is there's it's still actively being worked on, and there's tips still coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of my last question. After 35 years, when you look back on it, what do you think happened that day?
Wrong place, wrong time.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, I think that's the case in a lot of stories like Michael's as well.
Mhm.
I just recently spoke with a woman named Janelle Rapp, and her sister disappeared from Lincoln, Nebraska. And she was kind of a musician on the side, and she had played an open mic night. And I asked her, I said, just based on what I'd learned about Gina, like she's probably put that guitar and her sheet music in that trunk hundreds of times and closed it and went on her way. And in literally a matter of a second or two, something happened.
Mhm.
And that's got to be one of the most challenging parts of trying to look at these cases, see if there's anything that you can uncover to try to find an answer. When you sit back at the end of the day, and I imagine, of course, I'm putting myself in your shoes, what I would feel. And you think about Michael, and you think about, gosh, what would you say to him? What would you tell him?
No, we've never given up hope. It's just that motherly instinct, like he's out there. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of time for something to trigger to make him realize that this is not who I am, this is who I am.
If you had a message for other parents that have lived through or are living through something like this, what would it be?
You can't give up hope. You have to keep that door open, because the minute you give up hope, it's like you've given up on them, and it's not sending the right message out to children that are out there. It's like they all need to come home.
Yeah.
And that's our main goal,
Yeah.
is to keep the case open, keep it active so it doesn't collect dust, and remind people we're not giving up. We're not going away. We just want the answers.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to wrap up. So, Crystal, I really appreciate you joining me, answering a couple questions. I know it's difficult, but your willingness to talk to me today is something I appreciate tremendously. And I just thought, my gosh, this story needs to be told as many times as people can hear it. And that was really what drove my desire to do it. So I appreciate you taking the time. Before I let you go, a few things I want to make sure you know about. First, if you haven't heard yet, the Archive Podcast Network has a new show. It's called The Halls of Mediocrity, and it's covering that place where sports and true crime meet. The trailers are out now wherever you get your podcast. Go find it and give it a listen. Second, And this one's personal. My first novel, Echo 1953, Book 1 of the Hollis Files Mystery Series, launches July 27th, 2026. It's available for pre-order on Amazon right now, and the link is in the show notes. If this podcast has meant something to you, I genuinely believe you will enjoy this book. And finally, if you want to go deeper on everything we do here at the Midnight Mystery Archive, our Patreon is now open. It gives you early access to episodes, case notes, behind-the-scenes production notes, and a first look at what's coming next. 3 tiers starting at $5 a month, a cup of coffee. A link is in the show notes. And as always, follow us on X, join our official Facebook group, and if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify listening, make sure to give us a rating. It goes a long way in bringing new listeners to the show and the cases that we cover. We'll see you next time.